Hi, welcome to the Literature Lounge, which is literally and totally dedicated to authors who write books that make great films and conversation starters. So let's just talk books. Hi, in today's episode, we have with us Kiran Manral, an Indian author, columnist, mentor, and feminist, which gets me absolutely extremely excited about this. She has written books across genres in both fiction and non-fiction. Some of her notable works include Once Upon a Crush, All on Board, Karmic Kids, and today we're going to talk about Rising 2.0, 20 more women who changed India. So welcome Kiran on today's episode.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Mohua. Very happy to be here.
So, Kiran, I need to talk to you a little bit. Also, you're the founder of India Helps, a network of volunteers who assist disaster victims, right? So, before I come down to all of these hats that you wear, can you share us a little bit about the journey of being a blogger to becoming one of India's most, popular authors? How has the transition been?
Heaven knows, to be honest, because I was blogging when I had my baby and I was sitting at home feeding him and feeling pretty useless. And that's how the blogging started. The blogging got me a fair amount of followers and, all those top 10 lists that they put you on, top parenting blogger, top whatever blogger. And somebody somewhere said you should write a book. So I wrote a book, and that's how the first book came along. It came along, and I think my biggest cheerleaders were the mommy bloggers who were my friends at that point. And it continued from there. Unfortunately, stopped blogging now, but I think my blogging was like in Hindustani music, you have riyaz, and then you're tayyar to perform. So my blogging was my riyaz, and then the book happened when I was tayyar. The tayyari had happened.
But I'm sure you've had this whole writing thing in you right from the start, right?
So I did my English honors, and I was in journalism for a while. I was a copywriter. Then I got into advertising, market research, all kinds of things. So writing was always part of my core skill. And
Okay.
fiction, because one was a reader, I think one was always a storyteller and a reader. So somehow that happened when it had to happen.
You've written across genres, right? And so, how do you decide which genre to write in, and how do you adapt your writing style, based on the genre? Because obviously, each time you have to adapt to a new way. How do you do that?
So I read across genres. I read across very diverse genres. It's not that my reading is fixed to a specific. Uh, so just to give you an idea, my favorite authors are Stephen King and P.T. Woodhouse and Terry Pratchett. So that and Haruki Murakami. So you can see that diverse the spread right there, right? It's from horror and fantasy to humor and very old world English and fantastical kind of scenarios. So I think my writing reflects that. I tend to write the way I read. It's very unsettling sometimes because I have a very low boredom threshold, Moa. So uh, if I write in a particular genre, then the next book I don't want to pick up in the same genre. I have great admiration for authors who can do that and stay in that same space and keep writing in that same space over and over again. It bores me to death. So I need to, sort of palette cleanse every time and do something new. And I don't really decide consciously. It just happens. If I've written a nonfiction, then I'll write a fantasy. And very often you're working on parallel books at the same time. So one is in the process of being drafted, one is being edited, one is being, reworked and rewritten. So it's it's not to be recommended, but the monkey brain is what makes it happen.
I love what you said, the palette cleanser. I think it's also because of advertising. Do you think so?
Probably, I think, yes, advertising and also journalism, because you're constantly working on something new in both these professions. There's constantly a new client, a new story to be chased, something new that's constantly happening. So, heaven help
I
me,
get
I
that.
can't do the same thing over and over again.
Me too, me too, me too. I've been in the agency business and we've worked across industries. So it's always, it's really challenging when you sit down and work on something new. You feel great about yourself because you learn and it's a new process. So yeah, I kind of relate to that fully. Now let's just talk a little bit about Rising 2.0, 20 more women who changed India. Why did you select women and not men?
There are plenty of men's men's stories out there. Men are telling their own stories very well, and they've been telling them for centuries. And there are so many women out there who have done such stellar work and such incredible stories that we don't even know about them. Some of them we know, and I mean, they get forgotten all the time. And recently, we had this entire Wikipedia initiative where some very kind souls volunteered to sit down and do Wikipedia pages for all the forgotten scientists and forgotten writers and forgotten women pioneers. I think we, as women who are in the space of telling stories, owe it to the women who have come before us to tell their stories for the current generation and the next generation to know about. And that was what I started with Rising, which was the first book in the series. And when I did that book, you know how it is. It was supposed to be 30 women, but how do you limit it to 30 women? And that's how Rising 2.0 came.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So, what did go into this entire process of selecting the 20 women that you featured in your book? I mean, what there was the criteria, or did you just approach them from the point of interest for yourself, or you did research on these areas? How did you go about in choosing these women?
I had a huge list when I did Rising, the first book. Then we cut it down to 30, and some names were still left over. Uh, but that was also a huge list. And how did I select them? The stories that sort of resonated with me. So there are stories of women who are very well known, but you don't really know the nitty gritties of their lives, and the pivotal decisions. How did they come about? How did they take that fork in the road to go where they eventually ended up? And there are women whom we have not heard of at all, but some names are absolutely shocking for me, like Janki Ammal, who was in Rising 2.0. She was the botanist back from pre-independence India. She came from a little village in Kerala and she went to the US to study. She went to the UK. She gave us the sugarcane that we now have. So we can have, we don't need to import sugar. Pioneering botanist, and I don't think many of us even know about her. So these are the names that did truly intrigue me. You have the names which are famous. You have the Lata Mangeshkars. You have the Sarojini Naidu's. You have the names that everybody knows about. But within these names which are familiar, I wanted to push in a few names that were not familiar. And also across professions, across geography of India. India is such a wide spread. So I was looking at trying to get somebody from across the country, north, south, east, west, across wherever I could find. Also from various segments of society. So I've tried my best to be as representational as possible. I'm sure there'll be some feeling somewhere, but we can always do another book for that.
Yes, we are all waiting for that. So you've also included very exclusive interviews in your book. Can you share some of the memorable interviews or moments, insights, from these interviews that you conducted?
So yes, of course, there's Garima Arora, who was in MasterChef, and she's our first woman Michelin star holder chef. And what I liked about the when I interviewed her, her response to about the kitchen being not the professional kitchen. Sorry, while the personal kitchen, the home kitchen is very much a woman's space, the professional kitchen is still not a woman-dominated space. And in the end, she did say that women have to have great support if they're going to make it in the professional space, in the professional kitchen, and they have to put their lives on hold in terms of it's very difficult to have a family, a baby, and have a career in the professional kitchen. And that coming from a woman who is at the top of a game was such an eye opener that even today, these professions are so tough for women to get into. Women are as good as the men. There's no doubt about it. But societal pressures, unless you have a damn good support system that's going to let you do what you want to do, you're not going to get there. So these shackles, invisible shackles, so to speak, are constantly holding women back. So Seema Rao is the first. She's the first civilian commando trainer. She's trained people. She's trained our forces. She, along with her husband, purely for the passion of it and for the joy of giving to the country. It's not like she earned a lot of money from it, and very often they were cash strapped, so to speak. But the fact that she did it for so many years, just for that junoon of doing for the country, I mean, that was incredible. Who does something for so many years training the forces, and you know, when you could be doing it and earning a profit in the private sector, you could have been doing that. And that was incredible, the kind of passion she brought to her work. With And I think the most incredible and touching and story for me was Kavita Devi Bundelkhande. She is a journalist from the hinterlands. She spoke to me very candidly about her childhood, and how she was not educated and how she sort of got herself educated later. Her father was very against her getting educated, but she was very persistent. And how basically the most touching anecdote was how she got into activism, because her mother was giving birth to another girl child, and the father was very annoyed, and the father was there was domestic violence, and she was the eldest daughter, and she witnessed that, and she would try to stop the father, and she would try to and while talking she was very emotional. She said, "It's the first time I'm speaking about this." And I realize now, when you ask me this question, that this is what triggered my desire to go out there and do something for women, so that women don't have to face this. So I realized that it's not just what they've done and how they've done. It's also why they started doing what they do and what triggered it. And that story was very touching for me, that particular anecdote that she recounted.
The book also highlights the concept of the glass ceiling, which we all know that it exists, and many women encounter this in their professional journeys. So, can you elaborate a little bit more on, how is it that women tackle this? Because it's there, you know.
I would like to think that women need to get more aggressive in showcasing themselves professionally. Somehow there is this mind block about talking about your achievements, about trying going out there and networking. It's seen as unseemly. It's seen as not very feminine. You're seen as too aggressive if you do that. I know I'm hopeless at it. But I'm not in the corporate professional space, so I can afford to be stuck in my cave. But women who are out there build a sisterhood. The men have the old boys network that gets them things done. It's not about going to networking events and meeting XYZ people and sharing business cards. That will not get you anywhere. That will just get you contact. But you have to build up relationships that go beyond this networking thing. So have a very solid group of people in your profession, and not just within your space, but in the in other professions, who can sort of be your support system, be your backbone, take your name in rooms where opportunities are being mentioned, and be the same for these other women. I think that's the only way women can tackle this entire glass ceiling. If they don't even know of the opportunities that are around, because they get bypassed, they don't get taken, mentioned when a position is opening up, how will they go on to reach the class? And this is I think the first step, the very basic that we need to be doing. We need to be building a sisterhood, and then take it from there, of course. And there's so much, Mahua. There's support systems, there's gender pay equality. There's so many things, but I think if we get this one thing in place, we can build from there.
Absolutely, for sure. So, what do you think are the common traits or characteristics that you observe among these 20 women that have contributed to their success?
I think the ability to soldier on despite whatever life throws at them. All sorts of things can happen. Spouses can die, divorces can happen, a world war can happen. Parents can say that you can't get educated any further, but just to be steadfast in your determination to do what you want to do. And there's no need to, very often it's a very gentle revolution. Sometimes it needs to be a hard revolution or a revolt against things. But choosing your path and sticking to it, despite whatever's coming your way, I think that's what sets them apart,
Yeah,
all of them.
absolutely. I completely agree with you. It's about being committed, to your own idea. So, are there any stories in the book that you particularly find very, very inspirational and it resonated with you as a person, Kiran?
I would say Kamala Das, because obviously she's one of our most lauded poetesses and writers and authors. Also, Momo, she wrote very candidly about her life in a way that I do not have the courage to write. And I admire that, because she was married, she had three sons, she was living in a society back then which was fairly conservative. But she wrote about things that were even today could be considered shocking. And in a autobiography or a memoir or whatever you call it, some people say parts of it are fictionalized and it wasn't like that, or whatever, that's for her and her husband to know. But to be so candid about so many things, I think it was such an act of courage, such an act of courage. And also, I think because I'm a mother, and I also try to work within the space that domestic chores and responsibilities leave for me. So it's always working in the intervals. And she also wrote about how she cleared the dining table at the end of the day and then sat down to write. So that really resonated, because you do not have the luxury like male authors to, say that, okay, I am writing now, nobody disturb me. No, you carve out your time to write between all the mess and all the chaos that is going on in your day to day. So that resonated.
Absolutely echo the same. Being an author myself, I echo the same that I could not write initially when I was writing at home. They would knock on the door saying, "Shakkar khatam ho gaya hai, abhi haldi lana hai, chai patti khatam ho gayi hai, biscuit lana hai." And they would never ever have the courage to do that if a male member in the house was doing that. For sure, absolutely. Till I had to go into a cafe, and that's when I had begun my entire blogging journey, and from there, my book and the rest of it. So, what do you think, the readers would take away from these 20 exceptional women,
Hope that whoever reads the book, and I want the girls and the boys in schools and colleges to read the stories of these women, and just take away the fact that if you want to do anything, you can do it. Whatever you want to do. There will be difficulties, there will be struggles, but just figure out on what you want to focus on and go ahead, and the universe will open doors for you. You just need to be very firm and very sure about, what your purpose is. Your purpose cannot be, I want to be famous, I want to be an influencer, I want to be, go viral. These are very temporary purposes. And it need not be something as great as I want to change the world and I want to revolutionize the world. It can be as simple as I want to immerse myself in dance, or I want to free my state of a draconian act. I want to, in my small way, make my life more comfortable by being a great athlete, so I will get certain benefits of being an athlete. Whatever small thing or big thing is your path, just find it and stick to it, and there's no reason why you shouldn't be successful.
there's a lot of conversations now that's going on, on equality and empowerment. So, how do you think the book will contribute to these conversations?
Have not really thought about the conversations about equality and empowerment, because these many of these women were not even thinking about that when they were living their lives. They were just trying to live their lives the best they could to do what they had to do or wanted to do. I think those are all secondary conversations. The first conversation we need to have is to let a woman live her life on her terms. And whether it is equal to that of a man or not, what is equal, what is not equal, where is she empowered if she chooses to wear a burqa, is she not empowered if she these are all very different conversations. But at the end of the day, if a woman is free to do what she wants to do, to live the way she wants, to work where she wants, to have the career she wants, to marry the person she wants to marry in today's day and age with all that's happening around us, um, I think that is the first conversation we need to have. And I hope the stories from this book tell the readers that you can live your life the way you want. You just need courage and belief in yourself.
You've received numerous awards, right, for your work. How do these recognitions influence your writing and your approach to your projects?
I'm happy to get them, but at the end of the day, I don't think it makes any difference. I mean, I hope I'll be right. I'm writing the way I always did. It doesn't do anything except add a couple of lines in a biodata, I think, in a resume or bio note.
I think it's an accolade, and it's wonderful that you've been recognized for your work, which is really really great. So, can you give us a sneak peek, into your future projects or books that you're currently working on? Maybe this could be an exclusive just for the Mohua show, Kiran.
Yeah, there are books always in progress, Mohua. So there's a dark fantasy coming out from Hachette in August. It's a very different space that I've ventured into. I've not written fantasy before, and especially not a dark fantasy. Amongst my favorite authors is Terry Pratchett, who writes comic fantasy. And I've had fun writing this, and I'm really very nervous and very excited to see what my readers will think of. They must be wondering, like, she's giving us horror, that she's giving us thriller. Now she's giving dark fantasy. What is wrong with this woman? She's given science fiction. Now this is a completely different space. So I hope they enjoy it. I'm really excited for that.
How amazing. And what advice would you like to give aspiring authors who wish to follow your footsteps of writing different genres?
Yeah, I would say don't. I would say it's very difficult to sell yourself, sell your books, and publishers also like to have you like, this is a fantasy author, this is a romance author, this is a thriller author. It makes life much more easier for them. So if you can stay within the same genre, please do. If you'd like to write across genres, just have fun and write what you want. And then don't don't expect to hit bestseller every time, because you're not. It's very difficult to do that if you're spread across genres. If you're contained in a specific genre, then your readers know what to expect and you build up that readership. But when you dilute your readership, it becomes very difficult. So make your choice. That's what I would say.
Thank you for this absolutely candid conversation, Kiran. This was really, really from your heart. I could just completely sense it from across cities. Thank you so much for being on the Mohua show. It was an absolute pleasure having a conversation today with you. And we wish you lots and lots of success with many, many books on different genres. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohua. Thanks for having me, and all the best to the podcast. May it scale international heights.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kiran. Thank you for tuning into the Literature Lounge, which is an all year round audio literature festival dedicated to writers across the globe. You can get in touch with us via LinkedIn or DM us at our Instagram page, The Mohua Show. Or you can also email us at hello@themohuashow.com to discuss your books and also meet authors you haven't yet met at the Literature Lounge.